Hello, everybody. My name is Marcell, and this is the Rant-A-Way Podcast, where we don't talk about our favorite things we rant about them. I have my host with me here today, Money Green. Money Green, what's up? He said he wants to get through this really quick, so I am going to give him just that. I want to see 30 minutes on the shot clock.
This is the challenge. Everybody, people didn't think that I could do short form, so I'm gonna try to do short form as good as I can today.
Okay, here we go. It's 1:04 p.m. right now in the past of June 21st, 2025.
So what we got today? We got to do the previews for the movies coming out. If you're actually both movies are right in your wheelhouse. The Dino movie, and then Superman. And I think next time, the one after this one is gonna be the review. Yeah, reviews. Sorry, Saturday, and English is not good for me. The next one's gonna be the reviews, and then the preview for Fantastic Four. But today we got Jurassic World and we have Superman. So what's the deal with this Jurassic World movie? So who's it by? I know you know the guy who's doing this. You think you said he did Godzilla or something like that?
That he did.
And which Godzilla did he do? The recent ones?
The 2014 one.
Oh, okay. That's the
American
one
Godzilla.
they did. America, okay.
I'm just on crack. I'm just like, answer response.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to go fast like that. It's not on you. It's on me. So I just gotta keep us.
I thought you was gonna be like, "What are you gonna look forward to it?" I look forward to the movies. That's it. That's all I have to say, guys. Thanks so much for stopping by. It's been great. 30 minutes to 3 minutes. It's been great.
But so he did the American Godzilla, the one that ties in with King Kong, right?
Yes, that is the one. That is the one that he does that will eventually tie to King Kong.
Okay, so he did that one. So what's your thoughts on this movie coming up? What are you looking forward to? What do you think about it? What are you hoping for?
From what I've seen from just one trailer, which was a ways back, I'm excited for it. Definitely cautiously optimistic, since I kind of had my doubts confirmed back when the first set of Jurassic World movies were coming out, where the first one, in my opinion, was really good because it borrowed a lot of the, proper elements from the first Jurassic Park movie, and then the second Jurassic World movie borrowed a lot of elements from the second Jurassic Park movie, which I look back fondly on more now. Well, at least like around 2018, 2019, 2020, because that's when I was watching it a lot. But like back then, it really wasn't the best follow-up to the first movie. And then Jurassic Park 3 was kind of just like its own separate thing. It was directed by Joe Johnston, who would eventually go on to do the first Captain America movie. So I like it. I like Jurassic Park 3 more than I like the second one, but it's just kind of this in the corner type of movie for me. It's just like things happen with no real rhyme or reason for a segue into the next part, other than, dinosaurs and being chased by it. But it had so many like just good set pieces for me that like I just love and quote and always get excited when I see like when Billy puts on the dinosaur glider and tries to save everybody from the pterodactyl birdcage scene, even though he just got chewed out for stealing eggs. But Jurassic World 3 wasn't good. Just kind of like how Jurassic Park 3 really wasn't in the grand scheme of things. Like, I know there's a lot of people out there that will like Jurassic Park 2 and 3, as do I. But if I'm looking at them just like from a movie standpoint, it is a bit of a weaker punch compared to the very first movie that just said so much and so little. And I'm hoping that when Rebirth comes out, it's a nice amalgamation of like all 6 movies, but not in the way where it's like they're doing like that, hey, we're doing this thing the same way the other characters did it in the other movie. Don't you remember that? Don't you like it? Because I didn't like how they were doing that in Jurassic World 2 and 3 for the most part. They just reenacted so many familiar scenes that you just go like, oh, I've seen that in the other movie. Therefore, this movie is good. And I don't know, I just think it's a very low-hanging fruit. But if I'm not focusing on just that, I would like if they delved into the books to some extent, like the Carnotaurs being chameleon/camouflage, which they kind of did with the Indominus Rex. And while I think they did that scene really well to just get across the point that, these are genetic monsters before they're dinosaurs. I really want to see that in this movie, since they're going to a part of the island where a lot of the dinosaurs incubated were never supposed to go to the main islands that we see in the movies. And going back to why I like JP3 is because, like, the Spinosaurus, even though in hindsight he's not that big of a big bad for a dinosaur antagonist because he just shows up, but like, the reason in my headcanon, the reason why he never got to the main island with like the T-Rex and all the others is because the thing was just super aggro. Like, it just would kill anything that it went to. And, for a park attraction, that makes a lot of sense. It would be excitable. It would get people to buy tickets and show up like they did with the first Jurassic World and the Indominus Rex. But, just looking at it from like an animal behavioralist perspective, it's just too much of a loose cannon to, put next to that many people. But now you have a whole island where that's the case. So it's just kind of like, for me, I just want to see like, okay, well, what was so, bad and dastardly that they couldn't take off the island? And since we're getting closer to June, I've been seeing like a trailer pop up every now and then. I don't look at it because I know it just off of the sound, and they're using the sound from the first intro credits of the Jurassic Park movie, where that like African whistle and the little leaves, bustling and brushing. So I'm just kind of like, oh, skip. So it's coming, and I'm excited for it because it's dinosaurs. I'm not gonna hate it, but I am gonna hope the best for it, and then go and see it. And Superman's just cool. I'm sorry, I gave more credence to Jurassic Park, but Superman's cool. Like, I can't get mad at Big Blue. So.
Well, yeah, no, sticking with the dinosaurs, but yeah, no, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I should probably go look at them again. I'm probably not gonna do that, but I should, because I'm like, yeah, I remember. I think the last one, which is the one that you say you didn't really care for that much.
Dominion.
Was the one where they just was the one where they just did all of the nostalgia, right? Where they brought everybody back from the original Lost World and then the Jurassic Park movies, and then
I mean, to be fair,
ones...
in their defense, and to someone's credit, they did kind of do it in the second movie, but the way it was marketed, it was misleading. Kind of like with The Last of Us Part 2. I think that's why a lot of people hate that, but we're not talking about video games. How they marketed, legacy characters coming back and stuff like that. It was in the second movie, but there was traces of it even in the first Jurassic World movie with like Jeff Goldblum's books. But the way it was done in the third, it makes sense why they're there. It just didn't make sense why they would be contacted so late into the game with everything happening in the first movie, second movie, and then third movie. But was it bad that they included them? Not really. Like, their inclusion makes sense. And I would recommend that everyone watch like the director's cut of Jurassic World Dominion, because even though there's not too many scenes added to the movie for a longer runtime, it's just that the establishing scenes really make sense as to why these characters are even about to attempt the things that they do in the movie. And I think it gives a much better read versus what we ended up getting in the theaters. So, yeah. Dominion 3, the more I watch it, it was pretty good.
As somebody who was very into it, do you feel like they had the idea of bringing back the cast from the other movies first and kind of planned the movie around that, or did you feel like they made the movie and then figured out how to get these guys back into it, if that makes any sense?
I can't really say, because like, I don't keep up with the articles and the outlets and stuff like that, but just because one, it's an ever-changing just scene of just stories and hearsay and bad faith criticism, bad faith journalist, always some narrative or an internal narrative to push. So like, again, me trying to keep up with all that when I'm still just trying to figure out what I'm gonna have for dinner later that night, I just priorities, but seeing how successful No Way Home was, they might have been a few reshoots, or like, hey, what if we give them more scenes or more credence and, try to push towards this side of the film that, these characters are coming back, and whatever they're going to be doing in the movie, we'll figure that out as we go along. But, I just remember watching the first like 10 minutes of Dominion and just thinking like, like, man, we got really deep into this, in terms of just like Jurassic World as a franchise. Because I like how strong it started with just people not really caring that like dinosaurs exist in their world, something from 65 plus million years ago now just coexisting in their ecosystem. And what we think would logically happen in terms of like what happens when you bring a whole different species from a different climate where like carbon dioxide was just like in the air where you stand, now living amongst us. And just they never got into like that aspect of just dinosaurs and genetic monstrosities living in the world as good as Jurassic Park did. Like Jurassic Park in that dinner table scene where Hammond and Grant, Ellie, and Goldblum are all talking about like just the different oddities that's going to come with having this type of park where the paleobotanist Ellie is just like, hey, you're using plants from like the Cretaceous period, but you don't know how that's going to affect the current ecosystem that it's in. And that's just with plants, and then you got Grant who's talking about the dinosaur aspect, and then Goldblum likens what Hammond is doing to a kid finding a gun in his dad's drawer. It's like you just don't know what you're doing. You're putting it in there because it looks cool, but you don't understand why it's cool. You don't understand why it's dangerous. And then by the time it gets to Jurassic World, they really hamper in where it's just like you put 6+ different dinosaur genetic sequences and DNA whatevers in one creature, and then you didn't think that it was going to respond off of those characteristic traits that you gave it. And he's like, well, I was just going off of what you told me. You said you wanted it to be cool. But he's just like, but you made a monster, But by this point, it's already too late because it's out in the park and it's killing people, And then you got corporate people just going like, well, we can salvage this. And it's like, no, shut the park down, call the National Guard, and get those people out of there. But they just don't do it, So for me, Jurassic Park always just had like that cool undertone of just like the hubris of humanity, always thinking that like, they can topple something just because, hey, they got thumbs. And for what it is, those 6 movies speak to me. And I don't know if Rebirth is going to go in on that, or if it's just going to be, hey, we're smuggling people in this island or off this island, and we just happen to come across dinosaurs along the way. Like, I don't know if there's going to be like a family theme or aspect to it, because if I remember correctly, the first one kind of had a family aspect to it with Dr. Grant and Dr. Sadler, and then the 2 kids, Lex and Tim. The second one, kind of, but Jeff Goldblum's family line is never really explained because he's married occasionally, unquote. Jurassic Park 3 had a lot more stronger family vibes. Jurassic World had it, even though there was a divorce happening in the midst of all that with the parents of the 2 characters that we follow. Jurassic World 2, kinda, but very like last 30 minutes of the movie. And then Dominion, where it's just kind of like everything you thought the franchise was leading up to veers a hard right. And if you squint hard enough, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. It's just not what I thought it was going to go for, So again, wherever Rebirth takes it, I'll be excited to see, just because of like what can you say about dinosaurs other than that they're cool? And if they nail it really hard where like, a lot of people can resonate with it and they think that, yeah, this is a cool franchise now or something like that, right? You know how the normative market will be. Great win for Gareth, just don't overdo him, don't cook him, and give him freedom more so than you did with Colin Trevorrow. Sorry for ranting. I just love dinosaurs.
No, I mean that's the point. That's the point.
No, not to you, to the people.
What again? That's the point of it. You turn into the Rant-A-Way Podcast. You expect to hear some rants. No, that's like tuning into like the gardener podcast, and then you don't want to hear about people gardening or plants. Like
this is the mildly talking podcast.
You know why you here. They know why you here.
You got what you're paid for.
Oh yeah, no. To set the scale. I don't know how you think this, but to set the scale, so to say, before we move forward. Out of the Jurassic movies, Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, Lost World, all of them, which one would you say is the best? The most well put together?
My gosh, well, why would you even have to ask that? Everybody knows it's Jurassic World 2. No, for real though, it's Jurassic Park. Like, it's got thrills, it's got horror, it's got intellectuals, it's got science that makes sense in the world of the movie, going off of information that they had at that time in like 93. And you know, they updated as the series progresses, with real world paleontology continuity and trying to embed that into the movies. But like, if you remove like the real world implications that, like, you know, dinosaurs are, you know, thought to believe to be this, and now new studies show that they're now this. Like, if you remove all that for a minute and just look at Jurassic Park just as one movie, it's pretty cool. As a franchise, I don't know if it has like that type of, you know, potential, because they already went through all the highs and lows and the expectations that come with trying to run a park that has dinosaurs in it. But because the first movie did it so interestingly, and it was done with so many fun and interesting characters, you're like, yeah, I do kind of want to see this again. But you know, you called Spielberg to do it again with The Lost World when he was already, you know, busy doing Schindler's List, and he was more passionate about that because that's where his heart was at to direct at the time. But you know, when you have to come in and make another follow-up to something that you didn't think was going to be a crazy blockbuster, but I can only imagine like where his head was at when he had to sit down and just start, you know, typing the script with I think it was David Coep that also wrote it with him for Jurassic World 2, and Jurassic Park 2, and then eventually just stepping away with Jurassic Park 3, but still I think supervising it or executively producing it, and then letting Joe take care of how JP3 was gonna go. But yeah, Jurassic Park is definitely the best out of the 5, because it's just like it's a self-contained story, but in order for you to really grasp or even care to understand what's happening in Dominion, outside of just like, wow, dinosaurs are eating people and there are dinosaurs in underground chicken fighting circuits, right? You kind of have to watch 1 and 2 to really get that feeling of like, oh no, what's going to happen to Owen Grady and Claire and all these other characters that pop up, you know? But with Jurassic Park, it's just kind of like, they got a lot of things right in just one shot. So JP takes it all the way. Time.
So JP is the best, and which one would you say would be the worst put together?
It's kind of tough because the other 5 are pretty cool, but like, I don't know if like I'm going for the worst.
Not to say that it's like bad, but just to say which it's not as strong, or it's the weakest of the strong.
I guess Jurassic Park 3, just because its story is isolated from the first 2, outside of, you know, let's get Grant back on the island to get him on the island. But well, I guess that's not fair, because that's more of like like for casting reasons. If I'm looking at it for story as to like why they wanted him back on the island, to basically be like, yeah, you've been on this island, and he's like, I haven't been on this island. This is Isla Sorna. This is Site B, you know, and the island that we were on was like the other site. So I guess JP3 would be the weakest because it has no bearings on the other 2 movies outside of just Dr. Grant. Because if I remember correctly, other than him and Ellie, there's no other characters from the previous movies that return in that 3rd movie. So you don't really need to see the other 2 to get what's going on in JP3, other than a guy just being coaxed into going to this island to help him look for some, you know, someone's kid, unbeknownst to him. But I don't know. That was enough for me to be like, man, I like that. Like, that's cool. You know, it's different. Because in a movie about dinosaurs, it's like, how much can you really say outside of everything that Jurassic Park 1 already covered? The whole movie starts because someone got killed by a raptor trying to move it from one cage into its enclosure. And that spun out into some crazy law firm to be like, hey, you're going to get sued. And then the guy's going, oh, that sucks. But like, I'm about to open this park up next week. So let me just get like 5 consultants who will tell me that the park's okay. And we'll handle that later. Like, he just, I mean, in the books, he definitely does not care that someone died. Hammond, Dr. Hammond, the guy who runs the park. In the books, he's very, very different. But in this movie, it's like, it's still there. But because I'm like in the weeds of Jurassic Park, like on screen and off screen, I see stuff like that and I go, man, I can't say that that's the worst, because like, given what you had to work with and however much that director knows about the source material and just where their head's at when they want to make this character and tell this story, I think they did a pretty good job. Now, it might differ from you, right? Because you're not in the weeds as much. It sounds like you haven't seen the movies, which is crazy, right? But hey, I haven't seen Star Wars, so tit for tat, right? And I don't know where you're at with the books.
I've seen them. I just haven't it's been a while, so it's not as strong in my memory as it is in yours. Like, yeah, you talk about it, and just being like this and that and whatever is interesting to me. And then it kind of makes me want to go like, yeah, maybe I should just go and see if I can go on Peacock or something like that and just catch a marathon for this and that or whatever. So in the review, I have a little bit something more to say because I just don't. I remember them. I seen them. I remember when I seen them, where I seen them, but I haven't seen some of the older ones since I was legitimately a kid. And I haven't, the most recent ones. Like I remember them. I remember them more than I remember the older ones. I remember what was happening with them and the characters and stuff like that. But it was kind of just like watch it once. Maybe it comes on TV and I look at it for a little bit, or my mother's looking at it for a bit, and I'll see it and we'll talk about it real quick. But it just hasn't stuck with me. I know dinosaurs is your jam.
Dinosaurs are
But
legit. Before anime, there was the dino. To anyone who cares.
yeah, this is really your this is your domain. So I was just like, yeah,
You could say it's my dominion.
Like I said, not or that, but not to say that it was like any of them were bad, but which ones was like the worst ones of the best. And I mean, you could say it from like different perspectives. You could think it from like either story or which one adapted the what was going on in the books, the best or the worst.
Well, there's only two books, and they kind of touch on a lot of things like already, right? They talk about just messing with genetics, trying to play God. You can't keep this in the box, but once you do, it's like you can't go back. If you don't innovate on it, somebody else will. Like they broad stroke it really well, but there's just some of those in between moments of like the chapters where it's just kind of like, this character died in a way where he didn't just get sprayed to the face. He got his guts cut open and then he could feel the pain, but because he was blinded by toxins that belonged in an animal that weren't supposed to be in there because the scientists had no idea what they were doing, it just adds this level of like, man, like these are not dinosaurs. These are literal freaks of nature that have no failsafe other than like some Lyme disease that they've only mentioned like I think 3 times in the movies. And again, unless you've seen the books, you're not gonna do that like the DiCaprio whistling point where it really hits you. So for me, because I kind of flushed through a lot of this material just throughout my life, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm excited to see what Rebirth does because you have 6 movies, 2 books, and like 20 years of just raw oomph, right? To say something fun about this movie or smart. Now, if this movie ends up being like bleh, right, and I'm just kind of like, well, it was fine, or as you say, it was a movie. I would hope that maybe Universal Studios like shifts to maybe like a Jurassic Park TV series, not like Camp Cretaceous and they're kids and they're on the island and they just happen to get caught up in hijinks. I want like a R-rated Jurassic Park where they really get into the weeds as to why like creating these things was a mistake and getting these things off the island to the mainland is a problem. The books just have so much that they could go through, but I feel like, I don't know, maybe Rebirth might just be like, well, people love these specific parts from the book, let's just put it on screen and call it a day, and they'll never go into a TV show. But I don't know, like it's definitely not a strong franchise, but it's got fun movies. It's got fun, separate individual movies where at the end of the day, your Google Gaia brain just goes, don't get eaten by dinosaur, right? Now show me how you escape. That's what I like about it. But then when I get into moments like this where I'm just kind of like, but like, why do I like it? Like for like intellectual reasons. This is what comes to my mind because I'm just kind of like, whoa, dinosaurs, but like dinosaurs made by humans and now they're just brought back into this world. How's that going to work? Like, what does that affect? Type of thing. So I like stuff like that. Now, again, if Rebirth is bad, then this stream will age very well. but if it doesn't, right, my statement still stands. It's dinosaurs. I will always like dinosaurs. I haven't seen every single dinosaur thing's ever been made, right? But it's just like I have such a positive disposition when it comes to just these reptilian creatures because, like, to me, dinosaurs are cool. I have very positive memories, more so than bad ones, about dinosaurs. So I'm always willing to, just give Jurassic Park and anything that comes out of it a chance because When have dinosaurs ever steered me wrong? I've been eaten by dinosaurs in my dreams, and while it is very scary, I was just kind of like, yo, like, I'm dreaming about dinosaurs,
okay
like, cool, you know?
Yeah, like, you know, there's worse ways to go than this.
There is, but man, dinosaurs, man, they just do it for me. They're just so cool. They're like right up there with dragons, you know?
I agree. But so, are you saying you want them to do like a world, kind of like a world build type thing where they do like the movie and the show, kind of like how they did with the with Godzilla, where they had the movies and then they did the little show, or how it affects like
No,
the people.
I feel like they should keep that stuff separate because, I mean, like, ultimately, if they didn't have it like locked behind streaming services, I'd be fine with people just being about their own volition doing that extra credit homework. But it's the fact that like you have to get a streaming service, you have to pay for this streaming service to watch this extra content of the show that may or may not be related to the story. I don't know. I just think it reads wrong. Like it just sucks, you know. It's like, oh, if you want to see how the rest of this game ends, buy the DLC, and it's like, I just spent like 40 hours doing the main game, you know. So it's like
Final Fantasy 15 and whatchamacallit, and Disney Marvel.
yeah, like if it's models like that where like the stories are very dense and complex, right? Now Final Fantasy 15, I'll probably give it like a bit more of like leadway just because like it's Final Fantasy 15, and for the most part a lot of the Final Fantasy games don't connect in any real shape or form unless like, I don't know, there's like that one random game out there that tries to put all the protacts together. But for the most part, FF15 can be like done singularly. But with something like Marvel and DC, where like these characters have been around since, well, you know, Superman being around since the 30s, and then everyone building up upon that, that's like 80 plus years of just characters, you know, where some are going to be more interested than the others, but they still have history. Or they have history that's being reworked or recontextualized for like, you know, the quote unquote modern audiences and stuff like that. But perfect example for me, like I was watching Young Justice the other day, and I had just finished season 4, and side note to that side note, to anyone who's complaining about like Teen Titans coming back, just watch Young Justice. Like it's like that, but just a bit more like polished. And I'd see like all these different characters appear, like, you know, Blue Beetle, and I'm like, oh, I know that guy. I know that character's history to like, you know, that not like surface level, but like you see him and you're like, I have no further questions. You know, I saw Icon from like Milestone Comics and Rocket, and I'm like, yo, that's cool. Like that's like Dwayne McDuffie's children type of thing. And it enhances that watching experience for me. So because I have access to it, it's not a necessity to watch it to understand the mainline stuff. It's just like extra credit for me, right? But if it gets to that point where it's like, okay, I gotta get Netflix at this tier, at this membership to watch this aspect of a show so I can understand the movie, I don't think that's intuitive writing, right? It's interactive, but not everyone wants to do all that. Like, I didn't see WandaVision. I really wanted to, but I just didn't have time. But I still understood enough of what was happening in WandaVision to go into Multiverse of Madness and actually like Multiverse of Madness, separating the whole Wanda stuff. Like, on its own, I was still intrigued and enjoyed by the movie. But adding the WandaVerse element to it, I was just kind of like, oh, wow, like, that is kind of cool. Because, like, I do remember watching Age of Ultron with my dad, thinking, like, oh, so, like, X-Men, but not X-Men, because at this time they were still owned by Fox, so they couldn't like outright say it, but you just kind of knew, which also heightened the experience because of like legal reasons. And then here we are, like, you know, what, 10-12 years later, and she's like the antagonist, and it's just kind of like, man, like, it really be your own sometimes. At least that was for me when I was watching it. But I enjoyed it, and I didn't have to watch, you know, Blair to do it, type of thing. And I would say the same thing for Star Wars too. Like, when I eventually get around to watching 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, however much it goes, I'm not gonna watch the TV shows to supplement that viewing experience, right? I'm just gonna watch them as they came, type of thing. So yeah, ultimately I think that they shouldn't do it like that, where it's like, hey, if you want to understand more about like the Rebirth universe, which Universal Studios, please don't name it after that. Like, go back to your Dark Universal arc where you wanted to do the Mummy and the Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Invisible Man. It failed with the Mummy, to anyone who doesn't know. Like, they tried to do their own cinematic universe with Universal Dark or whatever it was called, before that concept really caught on. But like, again, not every franchise has that type of oomph to it, you know? Jurassic Park, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Marmaduke, Garfield, Scooby-Doo. You know, like, not everything is going to be that cash cow that you think it is. And I feel like, you know, Hollywood, if we're just going to broad stroke it, right, just wants that for every single thing that comes out now. And I just don't think it's going to work for everything. And while it does feel like they're trying to do that with Jurassic World, because I noticed that they didn't change the title of it, because we all joked that it was going to be like Jurassic Galaxy or something like that. But since it's basically Jurassic World 4, but it's Rebirth, which doesn't necessarily mean it's a reboot, but in like script writing terms, that just, or story readings, it comes off as if like it's a soft reset, which is weird because Jurassic World 1 was supposed to do that for the Jurassic Park iterations. So the way conversations like this can play out, it, to me, damages the brand that they're trying to set up. So keep TV with TV, keep movies with movies, you know? The only time they should really cross over is when it's like animated specials, you know?
Okay.
I'm sorry for ranting, guys. I'm so sorry. I love dinosaurs. Cheesecake. I love cheesecake.
All right, I can get behind that. Only thing I'll say is like, yeah, I agree. I mean, I said it. I think I said, like, I know it's a big problem with Marvel, because the problem with that is when it comes to Marvel, it's like you actually, like, there's a lot of times where like I'll be watching a movie with my mother or something, and she'll be like, well, you know, who is this, and what are they doing, or what is this person about, or what, like, I don't think she really knew much about Wanda, or kind of, because I think they kind of like, you know why Wanda turns, but I think they really like held Wanda's turn and like her, you know, being wanted and stuff like that for like her TV show. So when it came to the movie and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and she's like, well, you know, Wanda's a bad guy. Like, well, what exactly happened? And I'm like, well, to really understand that, you really gotta like watch her show, which is on Disney Plus. And if you did watch that, then you know,
to the people who didn't, right? To the people who didn't,
yeah.
If you didn't watch the show, right, you would understand that in the movie, it's the influence of the Darkhold book that's amplifying the feeling that she's already feeling. And then this is what, you know, goes on throughout the rest of the movie, where she just acts like a complete unit, right? But again, if you had seen it, which is the preferred way that, you know, Marvel Studios would want you to do it, then that Darkhold piece would just be supplemental information that makes you go, yeah, this is why she's acting like this. But again, because I hadn't seen the show, I picked up enough to go like, okay, I understand that this is her way of grieving. And the book is just is making that even worse, right? She's going through the process, but she's doing it in a very bad way, in their world of, you know, rules and mysticisms and all these other influences, right, and these deities, because they do the whole incursions thing at the end, which in my head I go, okay, I know that's a Secret Wars thing, right, and they're building up to more, but we weren't there yet. But again, for your mom's viewing experience, right, it's gonna read differently. But I don't know. It might just be because of like, again, how we just digest films and stuff like that. But like,
well, my whole thing is I don't like it when it's like detrimental to like your experience. Like, can she get by without having watched the show? Yeah, we got by because I never watched it and she didn't watch it, so we got by without her watching the show. But I don't like it when it's like, you know, we feel like, you know, kind of like how we was feeling when we played Final Fantasy VII. We're just like, yeah, we get it, but I mean, like, we feel like there's a lot more missing here. And then you go and find out, like, well, you know, the remake is really just like the first 6 hours of the original game, and they're gonna break it down into 3 pieces.
Right, but because I never played the first, because I never played the OG, I'm looking at FF7 remake as like everything that comes
the whole thing.
Well, not as the whole thing, but just as like okay, there's, you know, Cloud, but then there's also Zack, right? And there's this, like, he was supposed to be him, Zack was supposed to be whatever. Like, I understand that there was this duality to it in terms of like the parallel storytelling, but because the remake was my first introduction into it, I don't know that this is only like the first 6 hours of the game. As far as I'm concerned, the plate that was given to me was the full course meal, right? And I'm more surprised that there's actually more to the meal, which doesn't hurt the experience for me, right? I haven't got the second one, but from what the first game was, I was just kind of like, yeah, not a bad start to something. Because again, if you start FF7 with both discs in one game and told someone, okay, this is Final Fantasy VII, play it, right? Right? Who knows? It might have worked easier back in the 90s. But in today's time where people's attention is very short and very limited and they just constantly need that external stimuli, it's just kind of like, who knows if they're going to like it right then and there at that point in time. Maybe in 20 years they'll come back to it and be like, yo, underrated gem, masterpiece, play it now, or something like that. But again, that's because I hadn't done the OG, but you have, right? The same way that I hadn't seen the show, but someone out there has. And it has these varied effects, and it makes for a fun conversation.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, like, no, I hadn't played the OG, but that's what I'm saying. When I played the remake, because I'm like, oh, okay, let me see what this da 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 da, and I'm just like, that was my feeling all the time when I'm like, yeah, like I'm following the story and I'm with it. Like it didn't lose me, but I feel like there's a piece that everybody else knows that I just don't know. Or like the whole time I'm playing, I'm like, did I miss something? Like it seems like all of these people seem to know something that I don't know. And so it's this like thing, and then you find out you're like, I
but
think like
when you say people, do you mean like the people in the game or the people who've played the original?
Yes.
But like you can't hold that to your own experience because like that's not your fault. If you're
no, it's I'm not saying it's my fault, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying once I found out that this was only a piece of the story, because like you said, when we see the remake, like if you look at like Mafia remake, when you look at the Last of Us remake, though we know now that there's like a Mafia 2 and a Last of Us 2 or whatever the case may be, we're just thinking like, oh, okay, when it's a remake, because usually when we get the remake, we're just like, it's the whole game remade. So when you get Final Fantasy VII remake, and it's not saying part one or anything like that, I'm just thinking like, okay, this is the whole game remake. And mind you, I didn't know anything. That was the first Final Fantasy that I ever jumped into, so it's like, okay, I'm thinking this is the whole thing. But then when they start off and Cloud is already thing and he's got an amnesia, I'm like, the usual like, okay, we must be starting in like the middle of the story, and then they're gonna go back and explain it to us, etc., etc. So I'm like, okay, let me be patient, follow with this, keep up with this, and when they get to explaining stuff, I'll get the rest of the picture. Come to find out, when it ends, it's like, yo, there's like, when it ended, when the remake ended, I had more questions than I had answers. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like,
all to be revealed in part two.
Like there's a piece out here that I'm not getting, and it's like, oh, okay, another one is coming. And then when I went on to find out, and they said, oh yeah, from the original, this is only really like the first disc. It comes in 3 discs or whatever. Back in the day, this was only like the first disc that they did in the remake.
So they basically did FF7 disc 1. They just didn't market it as FF7 disc 1 because again, is that going to sound more engaging to people just off of a whim? Versus, hey, this is FF7 remake. Now, personally, if it was me, I would have at least named it like, part 1 or FF7 Origins or something like that, right? Like I would let the buyer know that like, hey, this is one step in a bigger goal. And now you have that expectation where it's like, okay, I know there's more to it, but I want to get to the end to see where it leaves me and then where it's going to go. Now, again, it reads different because I only knew so much of FF7. But you knew more about it than I did, right? So you were expecting more from it. But I don't think what they did was wrong. They told the game of the first one, the first disc, and then part 2, I would imagine, does 2, and then the third disc will be game 3. Now, I know they had that one in between. I forget what it was called, but I feel like that should have been...
Oh, Crisis 4?
Yeah, I feel like that should have been either a DLC or the official, like, second game. And then they could do 4 out of it. But again, that's just like how my brain's like just structuring the story, because act structures season wise are always cool to me. Like, Avatar, book 1, book 2, book 3 type of thing. Like, it's just like, what you're getting in this one thing. but then if it breaks that expectation, it makes it like, oh my gosh, like there's more to it, right? It's just an excitable moment for me because I was led to believe one thing, but then it's more to it. It's like when I was playing the first God of War, and wait, did you finish God of War?
Ragnarok?
No, first God of War, 2018.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when I finished that game, and they finally spread their mother's ashes, and Atreus goes, but they kept calling me this name, Loki, and you're like, how did I forget that? You know, it's just like, oh snap, like, yes, you finished your plate, but there's dessert coming, you know? And then when that Thor scene happens in the first game, it takes the plate and it just goes, hey, you got another one here, right? Here's a second helping. And to me, I'm just kind of like, man, like that's really cool. You go in thinking one thing and then it just, bum. Or like The Last of Us, where the game literally ends on a lie. You know, like, sure, we follow Joel and play as him, so we have a higher affinity to side with him to an extent psychologically. But it's like, listen, he's grieving over his daughter that he lost to a literal freak accident. And it's no one's fault. But him thinking that he's going to be the surrogate to this random girl that he was originally supposed to smuggle, it's like, you caught feelings. And then you lied to her. And then she knew that you were lying to her. Yeah, you're going to pay the price. But then the game ends and I'm like, oh, wow. Wow, that's not in my eyes, right? In all the 90s TV that we grew up with, right? The good guy's supposed to do the good thing. But no, he didn't. He lied for the greater good. The greater good. To anyone who gets that reference, you're a real one. And then the second game happens and you're just like, yeah, the consequences are real. He's getting it, right? Like, I'm on board with it. I'm following it to the best of my interpretation. And it's that expectation for me where it goes, okay, I'm going into it with this much, but then if it goes outside of the norm for that, I'm like, wow, okay, tell me why I should go this way. And makes for good TV. That's all I'm saying. So hopefully Rebirth does all that for me and more.
Yeah, hopefully, we'll see. But I think that yeah, we'll see how it goes. In terms of how well it does, and I got high hopes for it. I don't think that. I mean, at the very least, it's just it will hit on the, it's an action movie. It does its thing in that regard and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, for me, it'll be interesting
see.
to see like what a JP enthusiast goes up against a JP connoisseur and then goes to see the same movie. Well, I'm gonna go see it day one. I'm sorry, but I'll go watch it with you the second time so I can just be like, wow, I didn't notice that the first time, or oh my gosh, I want to see that scene again, type of thing. So yeah, that's what this example kind of is.
Which I guess that will work out pretty well because yeah, I mean, my mother will be asking me questions that I barely remember, and I'll be asking you questions because again, I barely remember. So yeah, I guess that does work out because you can act as the info guide. Because
yay, I love roles.
It's been long for me. It's been even longer for her. So
you and your mom should do a 6-movie marathon.
I mean, I like I said, I know I can sit here and say, well, talking about it with Marcell, I'll get pumped up and I'll watch things, and I may watch like 2 or 3 of them. She ain't gonna sit and watch. Well, I ain't got time for that, so she ain't gonna go for that.
Wow. But Cartoon Network
I
is
mean,
coming into you live with Jurassic Park.
They're gonna get ready to put them all over the TV and stuff and things for this movie anyway. So I'm sure she'll look at some of them on when they're on TV and nothing else is on TV.
Right, but like
usually does.
Not to be that guy, but like looking at something versus actually watching it. Like I wouldn't want to just look at Star Wars. I want to sit down. I want to have my food ready. My phone's going to be on silent unless my parents are trying to reach me, right? And I'm going to watch this movie. And I'm going to understand this movie. And I'm going to like this movie, right? Same thing I did with Harry Potter. Like, man, I was so good at figuring out stuff in that movie. Not to say that that's why the movie was good, but it was just like, I was paying attention to it so, like, just, that it was just like, wait, character did this, so that must mean this is going to happen, right? Or because the movie set this up as a rule, then this is the consequence for breaking that rule, right? And my girlfriend has, like, the worst poker face. So I'm just kind of like, yo, I'm on it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I like that because I like paying attention to, like, just stuff that I'm watching. And I feel like the same can be done for Star Wars, you know? And the only thing I remember from Star Wars, because I was just looking at it when I was a kid, I was getting my hair cut one time in the barbershop, and I remember this kid holding Boba Fett's helmet, I think, and he like put his head to it. He got his head cut off. And I never understood the scene of why it was important, but I was just kind of like, man, that guy's holding a very big helmet, you know? That's all I remember from it. So, again, going back to that at some point as I'm older to be like, oh, that's what that means. Oh, dang, that's what that means. Oh, man, I kind of feel for Boba Fett or something like that. So,
well, yeah, it will be something like that. But no, I mean, you know, if it was a first watch for us, then absolutely, that would be what it would be. For her, when it's not her first, my mother's very complicated with movies. You'll see. You'll see. When it comes to things, like we just went to go watch the How You Train Your Dragon, and she's seen the animated ones, and I haven't.
mm-hmm.
And the whole time she's watching the movie and she's just trying to remember if that happened in the animated movie, or trying to remember the animated movie instead of watching the movie that is in front of us. So again, it's very complicated.
Which is why there is no limit to
sometimes.
people as to why you could see the movie as many times as you like.
Oh, you can, but that's what I'm saying. Like she's not really the type to watch the same movie 1,000 times over, even if she likes it. So I mean, she'll watch it a few times here and there, or whatever.
Unless it's Tyler Perry.
We'll get to it. Nah, she don't even watch those over and over again.
Sorry, I had to put that in there. All black moms across America. No, the struggle is nonfiction.
They watch the plays and stuff when they come out, or the movies when they come out, but over and over again. I don't think I ever seen her watch any of those more than maybe twice, and it was because she might have seen one on her own, and then they did one at the family function. But other than that, not that I can remember, honestly.
Okay, cool. So what's the deal with Superman?
So Superman.
Segue.
Superman is something that I can speak forward to. So I guess I'll jump forward on this one first.
Take it away.
I'm very interested to see, like, when Dave asked me. So I've had some opinions. Some people are like, you know, I don't really know, and then some people are like, yeah, I'm excited, and then some people are like, I'm not excited. What I'm excited about is how this movie is going to go down and try to make sense of the situation it's seemingly putting itself in. Because it's James Gunn's first go at Superman. It's going to be the first movie in its series, right? And unlike most first movies in its series, it seems like it wants to jump straight into it. So we already have established Superman. Crypto is here. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want me to like temper this stuff? Because I got most of the stuff from the trailer. So
I saw the. How many trailers are there? There's only 2, right?
I think there's 2.
So yeah. I only saw the one trailer that first came out, where it was just the orchestral Superman theme and people chanting his name, and that was more than enough for me, because I was just like, oh my gosh, like, Superman, I love you. Superman's legit. So that's all I got. I know that there's a Crypto. I know that there's a Superman. I know that there's Mr. Why am I blanking on his name? Titanium.
Terrific, yeah.
Mr. Terrific. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was mixing him with Icon, but they got him. They got Guy Gardner. Did I see? What are the Hawk people called in DC?
I believe Hawk Girl is in this one. Yep. Yep.
They're not Themyscirian. It's a T something.
Thanagarian.
Yes.
Thanagarian.
I was going to be like, yeah, the Thelosians, right? Those Bible creatures with wings. So yeah, like the stuff that I saw, right, with no context, right? There was no dialogue. It's just like, because there's nothing being said, my brain has to go off of very little stimuli other than what's being shown, and I had to fill the silence with just my own interpretations of what I'm seeing. So like, I'm already excited for it. Like, in the way I see it, sometimes it's like to be able to direct Superman or Godzilla, right? Like things that have been around for that long, it's like a rite of passage type of thing, you know? And some directors who are just getting their teeth cut on big projects like that don't strike out really well. From what I've heard from you with James Gunn and like the Guardians movies, which I got to see at some point. It sounds like, you know, he's a competent director who will be able to tell the story of like the Man of Tomorrow. And I don't know. I'm excited to see it. Like it's Superman.
Well, he's definitely more of a upbeat, but can get to like the seriousness in the story. But what I was gonna say is, I'm interested to see because the going off of the trailers of the movie, if I Superman is your jam, and you know I'm the Batman guy. It's the same kind of worries I have for his Batman movie he has coming up, but I kind of get the feeling of like this has the potential to be like Spider-Man 3, where it has a bit too much going on in it, and then I worry about like it's funny because the last episode is about gatekeeping, but I worry about if like who exactly he's trying to make this movie for, because I feel like this one is definitely more for like my mother is completely lost. She's like, I didn't know they had a crypto, mind you. We watched the Super Pet movie, so she should know off of that alone. But she's going off of the old Superman movies and the old Superman on TV, but she doesn't know who Crypto is. She's not gonna know who Hot Girl is. She's not gonna know why Green Lantern's here. They got some big monster there. I don't know what that's supposed to be. I don't know if that's supposed to be like their representation of like Doomsday or what exactly it is, but you know, Superman is established. I believe Lois knows who he is already. So this is not like, you know, here's Superman's origin. This is gonna be like, nah, Superman is into it. Kind of like it was with the Batman, but further along because, you know, he's already got these things going on. People know who he is, and then you're bringing Justice League elements into it. So it's kind of like, all right, you know, I'm not surprisingly, I'm not getting pessimistic with it, but I'm interested to see how he weaves all of these tales together in this one movie.
Okay.
I'm interested to see how he makes that happen.
So like this might not be the best example, but Black Adam, okay? If you remove all the marketing and how it was supposed to shake up the DC world or whatever they said it was going to do, I liked it. As someone who did not like Black Adam is not even like in my top 40, right? Like the only time I remember Black Adam, if my brain really tries to like jump the neurons to think about him, is when Injustice was, you know, the big game on the block, right? But other than that, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that brand recognition unless you're like just into comics like that. And if you're into comics, your perspective is so wide that a movie like Superman is probably going to be light work, right? But for something like Crypto, I mean, like, yeah, your mom's technically not wrong for not knowing him, other than like that TV show that he had with like Streaky the Cat and Bat Hound. Crypto is not a household name, right? So of course she's not gonna know, right? And then seeing a movie like DC League of the Super Pets, I don't even think you wanted to go see that when I went to go take you, or was it my dad that I'm getting you mixed up?
I think it's your dad because I wanted to see that. Me and her watched that at home. I had to make her watch that, but I mean, like, I have no problem with the animation. I thought it would be like a little cute, funny little thingamajig. And I mean, Kevin Hart is voicing whichever one of them he was voicing. So I was like, yeah, you know, it's gonna be fine. I have no problem with it.
Okay, so not that movie was bad because I watched it and I actually liked it. I had more laughs at that movie than I was expecting, and I didn't go into that movie just going like, I'm gonna hate this. But like again, it was just like for me, I'm just like, hey, I'm near a theater. What's on right now? And I was like, oh, DC League of the Super Pets. You had me at DC, so I went to go see it. But I know that Crypto is just, he's not on the same level of like, hey, I know that guy, like Superman is. It's like think about Wonder Woman, right? Wonder Woman's top 5 villains. Name them, right? Most people would go Cheetah, Ares, and then
it's only Cheetah, Ares, and what's the lady that does the magic? Because I couldn't remember her.
In the world of DC, there's a lot of people that do magic.
No, but it's her main villain. You remember the Justice League episode where she turned her into the pig, and then Batman had to sing to get her to. He made the deal with her.
I remember the episode,
her
but the villain in question,
and I cannot say it.
Couldn't tell you. Call up Zantana.
Is it something? I think it's something with a M.
I know what else starts with an M. Mm.
Oh, I cannot for the life of me remember her name. But yeah, it's Cheetah, Ares, that lady with the magic, and I think that's like pretty much it. Wonder Woman is. I mean, I don't know. She probably has more villains, and she's got the whole struggle with all of the gods and managing that, and trying to being half a god and fitting in the human world. So she's got her own struggle, mind you. Like that's why I say, like nobody has as strong of a rogues gallery as my guy. But I mean, like when it comes to it, people have a
Don't
couple
you be
or a
throwing
few
Superman under
or
the bus like that. Superman got the rogues,
whatever.
okay?
Superman has some rogues, but I mean,
Superman got the rogues. What
honest,
you
it's
mean?
it's honestly, and nobody's got the rogues like Batman, and nobody's got the rogues
Superman
in
got
Marvel
the
like
Superman got the
Spider-Man.
rogues. What you talking about?
Come on, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? When have we ever seen a Lex Luthor movie? We got two Joker movies. This is not about that. See, I
Because
wanted to
because
not do. I
because
didn't want to
because
do.
Superman's I mean
I
Lex
didn't want to do this.
Luthor's like tether is Superman. Like I don't want to say like Lex is a grifter, but like in a world where everyone just accept that there's an alien who's a literal god amongst men, right? Lex is that only one who's just kind of like, yeah, I don't trust it, right? Kind of like Livewire for a little bit before she mutated. But it's just like trying to tell that story without him, there's a story that can be told about Lex Luthor, right? But like at some point it's gonna be like those Sony movies where it's like, yeah, where's Spider-Man? Like a villain is only as good as the hero and vice versa. Foil characters are so I'm not saying
Well,
you
that's
can't tell a
because
story without it,
that's
but
because
again,
they're going with the wrong ones. Like I get you want to do Craven and I mean, but why are you doing Madam Web? Why are you doing what's the vampire? No,
Morbius.
no, what's this? Yeah, why are you doing these people? If you wanted to do Spider-Man villains or antis or whatever, why didn't you do Green Goblin? Why, you know what I'm
Cause
saying? Like,
cause if it was being done by Sony, which it was, um they kind of already spent their cash with the first 3 movies. They were setting up the
yeah, but
Goblin.
I mean, so we can't really get into the whole studio aspect of it. You got to be like, all right, all right, I get why they did it for like studio reasons. Honestly, Venom probably should have did better than it did. But I mean, I guess that just shows that yeah, Venom can't stand on his own. I guess not to like
He
commercial
technically
success.
can. It's just that the way that this version of how Sony wanted to tell it, where Eddie was already established as a journalist, like the only reason why he ends up getting caught up with Venom and whatnot is because after Peter takes off the suit, or excuse me, before Peter takes off that suit, while he is still under its influences, at some point in his journalistic career and Eddie's journalistic career, Peter, under the influence, found out that Eddie was basically lying about getting actual pictures of Spider-Man, slandering this dude's name, and all this other, journalistic non-integrity. Okay, and he called him out on it. And it ruined his life, ruined his career, ruined his sense of self. Now, Peter finally takes it off. It goes to Eddie, and now Eddie, under all of that angst of, man, this dude did me dirty, but the suit going like, I'm kind of mad too that Peter took me off. Like I was digging that dude's like just whole kit. Let's team up, right? And then at some point when they finally mellow out and he becomes the lethal protector, it's like, okay, now Venom can go off and do his thing. But that's for like, I'll say for story reasons, but if you pull it back from like a production reason, if memory serves correct, because this is a while since I've heard this, Peter having that black suit on, while an interesting storyline, I think it was someone McFarlane, I'll just call him Mr. McFarlane, coming in to do the issue comics for the anniversary of, I believe, their 100th or 200th comic book issue, wanted to get that black suit off of Peter, right? Because he wanted that iconic Spider-Man. So he found a way to get that thing off of him, and then boom, it now goes to Eddie Brock, and now they got it off of Peter Parker, and they can tell the story that they want to do for this new anniversary issue of Spider-Man. I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but mainly it was because another writer was coming in to write for the iconic character, but he was coming in at a time where the person who was writing for the black suit Spider-Man previously was stepping down essentially, and that's what happens. It's just a shaking of hands with all these different writers, right? Where you might get the next person on the project who really cares about what was set up prior, and then they'll go off of that continuity or tell their story with that continuity in mind. But then you might get another one who comes in and goes, I don't care that he's in a black suit. It looks stupid. Take it off, right? And now they get to be at the pen to say, this is how these events happen. And then what makes it tricky for us is because it's like, well, what type of continuity are we following, right? There's some people out there who love Absolute Batman and the Bat Who Laughs. But to me, I'm just kind of like, Joker and Batman fusing together because of some toxic venom from another, like, it's an idea, right? But it's just kind of like, you feel on the surface that it's just a way to get these two like psychoses merged and then be like, this is a character type of thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not saying it's bad, because like when I remember when it was first, like, you know, in the roots of like being the only thing up to that point about Batman, it was interesting, right? But now we're doing like the Batman with like the different personalities, and we're getting into like the what was it, the 4 different Jokers from like the different eras of his character. Like, again, interesting stuff, but when you're telling the story, what's the goal? What's the end game? Do you just write these stories where Batman will eventually return back to the status quo? Or will we have longer lasting effects like Battle for the Cowl or Under the Red Hood type of thing? So when it comes to this Superman movie, it's like, okay, you see the elements, right? You see the threads that these all will eventually lead to. But as they are now, just watch the movie as it is now. Even if the director wants to set up more, don't follow it. Don't follow the carrot stick. Just watch the movie as it is. Because when I was watching Black Adam and I see the Thanagarian, I'm like, okay, but like, where Green Lantern? Right? Right? Where's that?
You mean, because they had Hawkman.
Right. Or if I see Dr. Fate, I'm going, okay, like, where's their version of the Sinister Six? Like, where's Rage? Where's Vandal Savage, right? Like, my mind could go there, because when I see these characters, I go, oh, these are who they're eventually going to, like, tussle and scuffle with. But because this is one movie made at this point in time, they could say that they want to have Black Adam 7 until it is in the theater, or it's a wrap, doesn't exist. Doesn't matter. It's a non-factor. There was a point in time where they were going to make Among Us 2 until Among Us got popular 2 years after the game came out. Because the game came out in 2018, but didn't get popular until 2020, 2021. And they scrapped their plans for Among Us 2 and went back to just polish Among Us as best as they could, right? Just because the director says it doesn't mean it's going to be, right? Remember how there was a time before Superman was, he wasn't even a Kryptonian. He was faster than a speeding bullet, stronger than a locomotive, and could leap a building in a single bound, not fly. There was none of this Ma and Pa Kent stuff. It was just the Man of Tomorrow. That was it. But because we have evolved from the Max Fleischer cartoons, and there's more, I guess, grittier and more substantial, like, tangible continuity to him now, where it's like, yeah, I can get behind that. This is what we follow with for now. So if your mom doesn't know crypto, that's not bad, but I hope it doesn't hamper her experience.
There's nothing wrong with her not knowing crypto, but it's like, so like, this is what I'm saying. When we go to the movies, when we line up us three, there's gonna be you, who's the fan of Superman,
hello,
me, who's the neutral, but me and you both got like comic book knowledge and like historical knowledge and whatever, and my mom, who's the complete casual, who just knows, like, you know, what was the guy's name? Christopher Reeves, right? Was the one who did him on the thingamajiggy?
For what, the first 4 Superman movies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So she just knows him. So, you know, that's the one she likes, and that's it. No comic book, no animated series.
Okay. Well, she might be disappointed, right? Because the world has evolved greatly since then, right? Like, people's values and things, the way people talk, the way people carry themselves, right? It's like that weird phenomenon where people are just nostalgic for eras that they never lived in, right? It's just like, when you see it, it just evokes a certain reaction in your brain, right? Where you see something from the 50s and you're like, I wish I was a traditional husband. It's like, bro, what? Like, when was America ever great for black people, right? It's like that. But I get it. The Christopher Reeves take of Superman was very wholesome and down to earth, and I guess like country bumpkin, but, you know, he's a Boy Scout, and they leaned into that. But as we see, the world
Right.
operates in a very gray field, right? So how do you take a Superman who's always been topical, right? Like Superman has always been whatever the time period needed him to be, but at that same time, he's always remained steadfast in his ways. Truth, justice, and the American way. Okay?
Yeah.
And seeing how you take that same equation and plug it into different things and what you get, Superman always comes out on top. So it'd be interesting to see how this takes it, right? Now, this is with James Gunn's crack at it, right? I don't hate the Snyder version, but if I'm looking at it in just of like how does a normal person see Superman, right? It's like, hey, not the most accurate representation, right? You're taking key aspects of his character where like he never crosses that line, and then it's like, what would he do if he did? But again, that's not something you start out with when you're trying to understand like the mythos of Superman. Just like with Batman, like you don't start with the one where he's like already 60, where I think that's the Dark Knight Returns part 1 and 2.
The Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, you don't start off with that. Now, if you did, your perception of the character is going to be very just. It's going to skew. It's going to go up. It's going to go down. What made you going to like him? Then you're not going to like him. You're going to go, well, he did it in the Dark Knight. Why doesn't he do it in this one? I don't know. Maybe because Batman Year One. Like, you know, it's how everyone just comes into the channel of when they start with something. And if you don't start it from its beginning and then never keep up with it, it's like, what do you think is going to happen? So again, your mom might just be like, yeah, it was she might say the same thing you do. It's a movie, but it's just gonna be like, you know, it's just a flick.
Be like, it was okay.
Yeah, like I watched it, you know,
or that or whatever. That's
right.
That's how
the same way if it was Batman, right, and it's not her Batman. I get it.
Well, none of them besides Keaton or West will be her Batman. But then that's the struggle that we get into. But it's like, that's one aspect of it. My thing aspect of it is, and again, I don't really have this feeling towards this movie. I don't really know because I don't have strong feelings for Superman. But it's like, I hated Snyder's version because Snyder didn't understand the character. And then when you hear the interviews, Snyder never even wanted to understand the character. Snyder thought Superman and Batman were lame. And so he went and found the edgiest versions of them that he could find, and his goal was to make them edgier and then put them on the screen. And that's it, because that's his formula, is to just be edgy. And it's like when you take characters and you know, transform them into like not slightly different characters of themselves, but like
Caricatures,
different versions. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Of themselves. And it's like you're not showing even the appreciation for like who they are, because it's a lack of appreciation. If you could say, yeah, I couldn't get into them, they're lame, then it's like, okay, bro, then why would you make movies about, you know, things that you think are lame?
Because I think sometimes, like at the end of the day, right, the director is still a person doing a very expensive job, right, and they got to keep the lights on somehow. Now, if that turns into them doing a project for a franchise or a thing that you know better than them, it does kind of sting a little bit, right? Because you're like, he has this opportunity to write a story and get it made and just bring to the world a whole new way about how this thing is looked at. And this is how he goes about it. And into that, I say movies that are like that don't stand the test of time for the right reasons. Sure, we may talk about Man of Steel or that version of Superman. But how long is the conversation for that going to last? How much of it is going to be remembered, right? Anyone I talk to about Superman only dislikes it because they know that that's not his character. But that's for the people like you and myself who get into the weeds of like the comic book history of it and how that influences the pages to the screen. But then to the casual market, he looks just like the guy in the comic books, and that's good enough for me. It's like, all right, that's your take on it. But again, if that's how you feel about it, that is very much so subject to change. It's why we talk about the first Ghost Rider movie, but not the second Ghost Rider movie. Because the second Ghost Rider movie was terrible. Great action scenes, but it was done by a guy who directed the Crank movies, which is not story-driven at all. He's got his skill set, but it doesn't work for the type of story you're trying to tell. And Zach is very great when it comes to VFX stuff. And he can tell some decent movies. But again, when you're telling a story with a character who's already had a story from the 30s, how do you say something different? Or how do you say something that feels fresh and new? And what he wanted to tell, I'm sure at the time he thought, yeah, this is it, right? But then as time goes on, you kind of go, yeah, it's getting kind of rusty in certain spots, right? Like we don't think like that anymore. We don't value that type of thing the same way. I'm still surprised that there is a version of the Justice League with his idea and Joss Whedon's idea. Two of the same movies to a large extent, but with different extended and cut scenes. But they're both the same movie. And a poor grandmother out there won't know the difference come this holiday season for Billy. You know, because in my head, when something is made, there's like this finality to it. But we're in this era where it's just kind of like, we'll do it again. We'll reshoot it, right? So again.
Well, luckily they did, because
great casting, wrong director.
And that's because of like studio beef. This is kind of why I give grace to things like the host, when everybody's like, well, Tom Holland's Spider-Man is whack because he's never on his own. And it's like, well, you have to realize that that's not because, you know, Sony doesn't want to make him on its own. That's Disney saying, yeah, you can make Spider-Man movies because you still own that, but we own Marvel. So if you do a Spider-Man movie, you got to stick one of our characters in there with him. So that's why he's always with Iron Man or Happy or Doctor Strange or this one or that one or whatever, because that's them saying that's influence behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the two Justice Leagues, it's kind of like that's your influence behind the scene. Now, I'll give credit where it's due. Zack Snyder's movie is a more complete and, you know, feels like a whole movie than Joss Whedon's was, but Joss Whedon kind of had to take the scraps of Zack Snyder's movie and put his own spin on it and drag it to the finish line with what he had, with studio bearing down on him to do that. It's just an ugly situation. But the whole fact of the matter is, I'll circle back to Batman versus Superman, which should have been a license to print money, but because, and I mean, I guess like money wise it did. Money wise, I guess it did good. Story wise, I thought it was bad. Because you're jumping into this is Superman's second movie, so this is technically Superman's world, and you're inserting a Batman into it from the Dark Knight Returns, and it's the same problem that I have. My mother is my mother is like the barometer, like the basis of like what she's like what I think the casual audience who doesn't know like what I know would see this movie as, except, you know, she has her own feelings and views and whatever of it.
Okay.
And she's seeing Batman like branding people, sending them to jail to get murked, blowing people up and doing this and that or whatever. She's seeing Superman ultra depressed in the bathtub, crying and sad and this and that and whatever. And she's just like, yeah, this is all wrong. And I'm looking at it from, you know, the comic knowledge perspective, and like, I'm like, yeah, this is all wrong. Granted, I know which Batman he pulled this Batman from. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right, I get it. This is Dark Knight Returns Batman with your own little spin on it. But this is his first introduction into this universe. Like, this is the people who just saw Man of Steel who are coming to see this for the first time. Maybe they know Batman, maybe they don't. But this is the first time they're seeing your Batman. And you're putting the endgame Batman here for his first appearance. And it's kind of like, well, that's jarring. But then you even got that representation of him wrong. So it's like, now you're getting on my nerves because the one that you're trying to put out there ain't even right. So, I mean, I don't know what Superman, this James Gunn Superman is going to pull from, but it's always a little bit, it's a risk when you decide you want to say, all right, I want to jump into it. Like when I watch the movies with my homeboy, he's like, how many times do we have to go to the movie theaters and see Thomas and Martha Wayne get shot before we get, like, he wants to skip the whole origin part. And I get it. You know, how many times do you need to see them walk down Crime Alley and get shot with the robbery and this and that and whatever? I understand. But I mean, that when that is the motivating factor for why it happens, you do have to kind of like either mention it, include it, whatever. You don't have to do a whole theatrical part of it, but you do kind of have to be like, yeah, this is why. For the people that don't know. So when you're jumping into the Superman movie in the middle, and this goes into your point about, yeah, just watch this one for this one. Yeah, I could do that. But when we're in this like time where all of these things, because Marvel did it and Marvel did it so well, and they're continuing to do it, where all these things are supposed to connect to another thing that connects to another thing that leads to another thing. I'm watching this and I'm just like, okay, well, where are we going on this ship if we're invested in these, movie? This is supposed to be the universal reboot. Um, and you're adding in elements. So, all right, when you throw in Hot Girl and you throw in Green Lantern and you throw in Mr. Terrific, it's like, okay, so you must be, at some point the Justice League is coming. And then when I know you're making a Batman movie where you're going to do Batman and Robin's going to be Damian. So, all right, we're starting at an accelerated point in this universe, not the beginning of this universe. We're not going to see them all come together from their origin. You're starting at an accelerated point, which people who know, they know. But when you have the casuals who don't know, are they going to be able to keep up with it? Are they going to be able to, know what's going on? So I'm interested to see how he's going to tell it from a story standpoint. If he does a great job of, because that's how it started. You know what I'm saying? The earlier movies of, like Batman Begins and stuff like that, and Sam Raimi's Spider Mans and some of these other ones, they had the movie was basically for a casual audience, but if you was a fan, they have Easter eggs in it. That's like I caught on that because I know this is from that. They mentioned this from this. He said that line from that book. Da-da-da. You know what I'm saying? They kind of like hit on all angles. There's a little something there for everybody. So that's what I'm kind of trying to see if he's going to be able to pull off this one, or if it's just going to be like, yeah, I made this one for one audience. It kind of leaves this other audience out here in the cold.
I think you're burdened by too much knowledge.
I mean, Superman. I mean, not really with Superman, but I mean, I'm interested to see how he views it, because, like I said, it just seems like it has. It seems like it has a lot going on in it. So we'll see. I mean, I'm not negative towards it. I'm just very interested to see how he is going to pull this off.
Man, I kind of wonder what the conversation was for the Batman movie, because I get he's not really my guy, so I was just kind of like, oh, the Batman movie's coming out, cool. But I wonder what the conversations were around that.
For Robert Pattinson's?
Yes.
Or I think. Well, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't really in touch much with the fan base, but my own personal feelings when I was watching it, I was excited as hell. I was very excited for Robert Pattinson.
Were you excited in the sense that you were just kind of like, yeah, Batman, nice, I like what I see. Who cares what the others say? I'm gonna still watch this.
Well, from the trailers, because the reason why everybody went gaga bananas over Ben Affleck's Batman was because he had the look, right? So he had Christian Bale, who was really skinny in the suit. He bulked up a bit, but they're like, he's too small to be Batman. To me personally, I could really care less about the aesthetic, as long as you're true to the character. Now, in my honest opinion, I feel like he was a better Bruce Wayne than he was a Batman. Yes, but you know what I'm saying? Like he did good enough as Batman where I'm not complaining. Everybody went bananas over Ben Affleck because he had the build and the suit, and because he had the one warehouse scene where Batman's actually fighting fast and he's just whipping people. And it's like, okay, cool. He did those two things right. They got 100 other things wrong, but for you people, the two things that he got right was enough. For me, no. So when they did Pattinson's Batman, they got him like he's rough, he's brutal. You know what I mean? He's hurting people like Batman does when he fights, and he's quick and he's getting to it and he's walking people down and what. I'm like, this is Batman. That's exactly what I said when they showed me the trailers, and I'm watching the trailers and what I'm like, this is Batman. And then when I hear the interviews and they're like, we want to focus more on his detective work, we want to focus more on the character, we want to focus more on what his thought process is, what he's getting into, and whatever. And I'm like, okay, so we're actually trying to make Batman a person instead of just, the image, or just the, oh man, Batman's here, he's just gonna beat everybody up and whatever. And so we're getting into the detective work, and he's like, pretty, he's not quite a novice, but he's not the world's greatest detective yet. But we're seeing him build up to that. And he's stumbling a bit, but he's getting some things, and he's working with Gordon, and you can see how the development is gonna kick in. All of that stuff for the Batman right now is just potential, but it's potential that's grown into the right direction, that it builds great anticipation for the first one before it came out, and even more anticipation for the second one, because the development and things seems to be going in the right direction. And so it seems like Matt Reeves is somebody who understands the character. It seems like Robert Pattinson is somebody who buys into the project and he understands the character. They're both working together. They're both going in the right direction. There's just a lot of excitement for us to finally get a Batman movie that seems to be clicking on all cylinders. Now, the second one can come out in 2027 or whenever it comes out, and if it bombs, we're gonna call it out on it. But I mean, the first one did great, carrying the torch to set the foundation. It's a great foundation right now. The second one's got to build the house. We'll see what house it builds up. If it builds a nice house, then I'll be very happy. If it builds a crappy house and it's leaning to one side and it's about to fall over and it's all over the place or whatever, I won't be happy.
My house
But
is a
right now
fortress
it
of
looks
solitude.
right now, right now it looks good. The only thing that's confusing is Gunn doing what he's like. Well, Reeves got his Batman and I got my Batman, and we're gonna do this whole thing on the jiggy, and it's gonna happen and whatever. So now you might cause some confusion to people who won't understand that Reeves' Batman is supposed to be in Elseworld, and Gunn's Batman is supposed to be the main one. So he says, I don't know why, but that's the way he wants to do it. So we'll see how
Well,
that goes.
that's what happens when the whole industry gets behind the way Marvel decided to tell their stories. No one said that they had to follow it that way, but obviously most people tried to and wanted to because it made a lot of money, like stupid money. But yeah, you do run into that issue where it's like, hey, we have multiple characters here, and we aren't sure how the people are going to follow the ones that we think that they should follow. It's like Spawn or Blade or Daredevil, right? You had all those old comic book movies that were just B flicks at best, and I'm sure that they were good for the time, right? Like, I blew my mind when I found out that the guy who played the Punisher in like that early 2000 one, I think, or like late 90s one, was the same guy who was the one in The Mist, which was the Stephen King book adaptation. Looks completely different, but the same at the same time. It's weird, but as far as I'm concerned, just another Caucasian guy, right? But there's another Punisher out there who's killing it on the TV circuit, and that's probably what people think of when they think of Frank Castle, right? My Punisher is the one from like Neversoft Spider-Man PS1, right? Who's just a cameo, but it's like that's where I jumped into the mainstream first, and I went with that, right? I didn't, in a sense, like update that particular like aspect of the character, right? So that might need to be brushed. But when it comes to like, we got Matt Reeves' Batman, and then we've got Gunn's Batman, it's like, yeah, you can have both. It just means that when you watch the movie, you now have to do all this extra work of like, I don't know, like consciously separating the two because of how Marvel has told stories and how everyone just tries to jump on that, which I get it. I love it, right? I love it when things can connect. Slam dunks, A to Z, all day, every day, right? But it just doesn't work for every single thing, The first Avengers, right, worked for me as well as it did because I did see the other movies at the time before I went to go see the Avengers with my dad. I mean, it was on a Thursday. So we're not going to school. We're going to the Randolph Theater, and we went there. I think it was May 12th. So it's like, another example, God of War. Only works as well as it does, the 2018 version, is because the people that played the first 3 games in the PSP spinoffs, it's like you're layered. You're just christened in all of that knowledge, and now you get to see him in a new era. and he's a kid and you don't know how, and you know how he is, but he's acting completely different. It's like when you're trying to get back with a partner and you're just like, man, you're different, but like, I'm intrigued by you. What are you hiding? And it's like, no, I'm just me. Like, I grew up, right? But it's interesting to see that when the last time you saw that thing was, you know, in Kratos' case, you know, a raging maniacal man just screaming at the top of his lungs, right? So that's what I see with it for like Superman, right? Because he's been around for so long, I know he's not going anywhere. Same thing with Batman. He's been around for so long, I know he's not going anywhere. There will always be someone to pick up the pen, to draw the cowl, and tell the story that they think is best for Batman in the time that he's going to be written. So, bring it on, Superman. You the best. Better than Batman.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to see how it goes down. I mean, you know, I feel I'm not gonna hate. I feel like, you know,
you shouldn't hate. You have all this knowledge. You know better to not hate.
We whatchamacallit? We need a good Superman movie. I'm not opposed to, you know, us having a good Superman. I want a good Superman. I want a good Justice League.
We technically do have good Superman movies. It's just that they're like, I don't want to say outdated. Oh snap! I didn't even talk about the animated side. Oh man, you know what? No, because I'm really gonna rant. But DC animated movies are legit. Yo,
yeah,
if y'all haven't seen the animated movies, the animated movies are legit. Start with Superman Doomsday.
That's all they have.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that the other Superman movies are good, but they're just hokey, you know. And the world was different at that time. It's not bad.
Oh, yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah, but that's what we need current. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, when it comes to the big screen, yeah, the big screen. When it comes to the big screen, man, Marvel's been killing it. Marvel's been killing it since, you know, Batman left off with the Dark Knight trilogy, and then, you know, Marvel picked up the torch and they ran with it. And then ever since then, we've been playing catch up. We as in DC. I'm a DC guy. You know, we've been playing catch up. We've been, you know, trying to copy their wave. We've been trying to, you know, do what they do, keep up with them and whatever, instead of, you know, doing our own thing. So now, you know, we had the Batman that, you know, is pretty good. We had Wonder Woman that was good too, the first one. And we've been waiting to, you know, get back clicking on all cylinders. So yeah, hopefully we do get a good Superman. Hopefully Gunn, you know, gets us going in the right direction, and we can have some stability. You know what I'm saying? We can have some stability for a little bit.
The S in stability stands for Superman.
I'm excited though. I'm happy for you guys. I hope that we do get a good Supes.
Yes. I can't wait to see his rose.
So yeah, no, that is his. He don't. I mean, yeah, they could put Toyman up there. Put Toyman in.
Wow, you literally try to go for like a D-list. Get out of here. Get out of here. This dude said Toyman. Like Brainiac don't exist.
Justice for
or Darkseid.
Brainiac
or Etrigan.
Brainiac and yeah, but see, hold on.
Cut it out.
When you do Brainiac and you do Darkseid, those are like world level events. You know what I'm saying? Like Darkseid is coming to take over the world, so you need the League for that.
Okay,
and
I'm sorry.
You know, when Brainiac,
Lex Luthor,
Superman can do Brainiac by himself. He could do Amazo. What's the other? Metallo. What's him in reverse? The dumb one.
Pizarro.
You could do him too. Man, Superman's got some weight, but I mean, you know,
he's got a rogues gallery. That's what you're trying to say. He has a rogues gallery.
If I'm talking about Batman's gallery, we'll be here for another hour. So I mean,
yeah, street level thugs.
We you know, right? I didn't even notice her the other day. You know that they're about to make a Clayface movie, right?
I did not know that.
And I had my boy up, and I'm like, they're gonna make a Clayface movie? And he's like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of excited to see it. I'm like, yeah, but you know, Clayface before, like, you know, some of the like Clayface before Freeze, Two-Face, you know.
But again, what if this? It's kind of weird because like this is like, I don't know. DC probably made a bet with the devil, and now they're paying for like the rest of their like existence. Where it's just like, They have the Avengers. Well, let's make Justice League, but we don't have the movies to establish this pillar. I don't care, make it. It's like no, Warner Brothers. Nobody told you that you have to, compete with Marvel in that regard. Just because they jump, you don't need to jump as well. You can dig a trench, but you gotta stand. You gotta stand on your own. You gotta make something substantial. You gotta make someone care. And again, Clayface could be a hit, right? Clayface me hearing you say that, with no idea that was even going to be a thing, my brain jumped to, okay, well, this could be a sleeper hit, like The Invisible Man, or Creature from the Black Lagoon, right? But it's Clayface. You know what I'm saying? That's like saying, oh, we did the Toyman, right? It's like, so what is this, like Candyman, but like toys, right? Because the brand recognition is not there outside of the casual market. Let's just assume that Hollywood makes stuff for casual people, okay? If you're looking at it from a casual perspective, it's probably going to be mediocre at best. But to someone like us, right? Look how much we could talk about Clayface. And everything that can come from that. You going to do Clayface? All right, well, maybe we'll get a Solomon Grundy at some point. You know what I'm saying? It can go on for hours. But Clayface, absolutely, to the average person, is just a dude who is covered in Play-Doh. Mr. Freeze, probably a bit more substantial. But again, the casual people don't know Mr. Freeze like that. They just know fishbowl helmet, red eyes, and a freezing gun. And that might not be enough to get them on board to see a Mr. Freeze movie, or a Poison Ivy movie, or a Mask of the Phantasm movie. Yo, if the second Batman movie was Mask of the Phantasm, that would be insane. But different rant for a different day. But like, again, it's coming out with Clayface, it's like, we get it. But is the audience that Hollywood wants to go for get it? And if Hollywood gets it, then are they going to hire the right person where they're on the same page?
That's what had me confused, because that's why when he's like, yeah, I'm excited, I'm like, yeah, but I don't really know if Clayface has that kind of like pull. Like, I mean, like Joker, yeah, even though I hated the idea of it, but everybody and their mother knows who Joker is, and I'm surprised, and I'm like, and that's what I thought. I'm like, man, they wouldn't even give Harley Quinn her own movie, but they're gonna give Clayface his own movie. And I'm like, I know people know who Harley Quinn is more than they know who Clayface is. I mean, I'm not hating on Clayface, but it's kind of just like, it's like them saying, yeah, we're gonna do a Firefly movie. Like they did the Penguin TV show, and it's like, yeah, because enough people know who Penguin is. That's fine, that works. And because he tied into the mob, and he was just in the movie. So now this plays on after the movie.
Right. On its own can it stand? And again, unless you had like George R.R. Martin right in the story for Clayface, it's just gonna be like, yeah, make this movie, right? We got a deadline type of thing. And going back to what I was saying about Warner Brothers or DC in this case, doing what Marvel does, it's like, hey, you're kind of going the Sony route, right? Where you're doing villains without that titular antithesis of that character. Because was Clayface gonna? What are you gonna have Clayface do outside of like the mafia stuff? Outside of the burglary? Outside of just being a villain, right? How are you gonna take a character like that and say?
Remember Clayface's story is he's the actor, remember, and then he's trying to keep his looks so that he can keep getting the roles and whatever, because he feels like he's kind of being phased out, and then he endorses some kind of skin cream, and it ends up screwing up his face.
Great, but is that enough to make a feature length film? Because if that's the case,
I don't think that story needs like 2 hours.
Right, there's something there, but it's like, okay, you could tell that story without Batman, but everyone knows Clayface as a rogues gallery to like, Batman's cabinet. So you can tell it, but in the back of your mind, you're going to be watching it and you're going to go, so where does Batman fit into this? Like, right? Now, again, he might not ever show up, right? Same way he didn't show up in Joker, but you felt the influence and it was distracting. And then when you did see him, you're like, oh, he's a kid. So, okay. So now I don't know where we're at. We're in uncharted territory. That can potentially happen with Clayface. You're having villains without the thing that anchors them to that world in the first place. Not saying it's good, but I'm not saying it's bad either. But it makes for very tricky storytelling and writing because, like, you gotta have to write that story, you gotta have to put it in front of a test audience, you gotta see how they track it, then you gotta deal with more back and forth with studio execs, and then rinse and repeat, production day, finish it, watch it, here's how much it made, here's how much it cost to make, and then, you know, here come all the piranhas to dunk on the movie and all that nonsense. So it's just like, again, I'm not saying you can't do it, but we're still trying to figure out who the main Batman is, right? Well, I'm not, because again, any Batman is good Batman, any Superman is good Superman type of thing. But it's just like you haven't even established your main anchors to whatever you're about to tell. Now, if you want to tell a story, right, about a guy in show business who is at the top and is becoming irrelevant and then wants to take some type of supplement to stay on top, okay, you can do that. But because you're saying Clayface, people who know are gonna go, bing, like, just everyone looks in that direction, going, "Hey, that's a Batman character. Like, what are you doing with that?" Because that's the case. You could tell a story about, I don't know, the dude who was doing the Tour de France and was taking a bunch of steroids. Like,
Oh, Lance Armstrong.
yeah, it could be anything. So again, the fact that it's gonna be Clayface, it's like, oh, that's intentional. So what are we doing here? That's all.
Exactly. Yeah, I would only expect that. It's like, all right, well, if you're gonna set him up to be the villain in the next movie or something like that, then fine. Because they did good with the Penguin show, and it's kind of like, yeah. So now you're showing, you know, like I said, whenever they do the movies, and you know you have a lot to work with, they should start it slow. No need to rush. No need to go throw Joker in there immediately. Joker will always be there. You can pull him in whenever you want. You know, like you don't have to rush him to the stage. He'll be there. You know, start low. You started with the mob and Penguin and Riddler and whatever. You know, continue on the mob. Maybe think people are begging for quarter hours. Do Black Mass. Do, you know, just some of the more B-list villains. Do Victor Zsasz. Do Firefly. Do Calendar Man. Do, you know what I'm saying? You could do these people while you have it low base now, because once you put Joker and them in there, the stakes raised. So you can't go, well, let's go double back and do some C-list. No, you can't do that now.
I mean, again, it depends on how they're written. You know, the Spot from Spider-Man was very, like, the Spot was up there with, like, Condiment Man and Big Wheel, okay? Very villain of the week type characters. But now the Spot's, like, one of the most dangerous multiversal threats that Miles will ever have to face. So it can work, you know? It's just that when you use characters like that, it's like, do you know why you're using that character? Or, like, I'll use it because it's cool. Okay, well, you know, I just hope you understand the weight that comes with that. Like, you know?
I think the Spot works because, mind you, I don't really have any Miles Morales knowledge, but I think the Spot works because it's like, it's Miles, and it's like,
but the Spot isn't Miles' villain. The Spot it has nothing to do with him. But in this story that they're telling, right, in these universes that they have set up, they made it work. But the Spot, like with a lot of Spider-Man's villains, belong to Peter Parker. But other than Miles, sure, I don't think we've ever had another Spider-Man directly, like, from a different universe that was, like, you know, explored upon, right? Because as far as Sony's concerned, Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man is basically like the continuation of the first 3 Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to over-explain it, but people who know what I mean, they know what I mean, type of thing.
The Amazing Spider-Man. It's kind of like, it's like All-Star Batman, All-Star Superman. They're the same, but they're different.
Yeah. Also, that's kind of what the Superman movie reminds me of. Reminds me of All-Star Superman. I like All-Star Superman.
It's got everything going on in it. But no, I think we'll hopefully in thing for some good movies. So we'll see how it goes. The next one we'll come back. We'll see. We'll tell how it went from dinosaurs to Kryptonians. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Whoop whoop.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, take us home, Kyle.
Wow, 1 hour and 40 minutes. Still the same time. I don't know how we keep busting out these feature lengths, man. Man, I knew I shouldn't have ranted about dinosaurs. What do you think about Jurassic World? It's gonna be cool. Next question.
No, but then, no, but then that would be too boring. So I mean, we gotta take the good with the bad.
And the bitter with the sweet. What's that saying? The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice.
The sweeter the juice.
I hate that saying so much. I don't know. It's just something about squeezing a fruit and getting your fingers all sticky. I got nothing else left to add other than that this summer is going to be jam-packed with dinosaurs, men who fly, and something about 4 people in a family, and they're fantastic. All right. Money, anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's it. Until the next time.
Dope. At 2:44 p.m., the Bible said it was very, very early and hot in the evening. And all you gotta take a deep breath. And stay with me. Stay happy. Stay healthy. Don't do anything we wouldn't do, except say that Superman has no rogues gallery. Because you're kinda on crack if you think that. But always keep on standing for Big Blue. And we'll see you in the next stream. I have been Marcell.
And this is Money Green.
And you guys have been a part of Batman's Rogues Gallery, which is not a lot. Take care, good day, and God bless. Bye.
Now you're on crack. You're on crack with people you got.
I think you're burdened by too much knowledge.